Happy New Year. Is it too early? You're supposed to be able to say that on New Year's Eve, right? Happy New Year. Can you say that? I'm saying it. I don't care. Happy New Year. I'm Cy Kellett, your host. Welcome to the end of the year 2020. You made it. You're one of the remnant who made it to the end of the year 2020. And we conclude the year this year as we did last year, and as we are making a tradition of concluding each year with a year in review here at Catholic Answers. And here to help us do that, two of the leaders here at Catholic Answers. I think I introduced Todd first most of the year, so I'm going to go with you first. Chris Check, president of Catholic Answers. Welcome.
Thank you, Cy, and thank you for calling me a leader.
Yes. I saw the org chart. I know you. And then the head of publishing here at Catholic Answers, Todd Agliolaro. Hi, Todd.
Hey, Cy, how you doing? It's right and just that I should go second, so I'm happy to see you do that.
Okay, good.
Good liturgical.
Thank you. I should have said meat and just. That's a really one.
Well, yeah.
Dignum et justum est.
We've become a bit of a team, the three of us this year. I don't know how you guys feel about that, but we've done some crisis shows. We started, I think it was June, we did the first one, and this is not exactly a church in crisis or a year in crisis or a world in crisis show, because
where have you been?
No, there's just some positive things in today's program.
There are many.
But first of all, thank you for doing those with us this year. I do think that they were widely appreciated. I think your sharing your wise perspectives was greatly appreciated, and it was just a terrible year other than that. So thanks for giving us a high point.
Shining spot.
One of the things we do, if I could just explain to the listener, in this end of year program that we do, is we do a poll. We poll our radio club and ask them a whole bunch of questions about the year so that we can draw on that material for this program. And so our radio, you can join Radio Club. You just go to CatholicAnswersLive.com and you scroll down to the bottom and you put in your email address, and then you're a member of Radio Club. We try not to ask you for anything as a member of Radio Club. We just give out a bunch of stuff. I probably shouldn't say that in front of Chris Check, president of Catholic Answers.
No. I love giving stuff away.
Okay, good.
I love to give stuff away. And by the way, this is an opportunity for me to ask for money, because if you send money to Catholic Answers, we can give stuff away.
Thank you for turning that into something positive.
This is a true and good, and this is a meet and just way to evangelize.
Yeah.
Send Catholic Answers a check, and we will give stuff away.
And we do each week. You get the Radio Club newsletter. We also give away talks and interviews and various things that we're able to record throughout the year just to give to Radio Club. But then we ask you to give back by taking part in the poll, and a whole bunch of people took part in the poll. We asked them, who's the Catholic person of 2020? What's the Catholic story of 2020, the news story? Who's the pro-life person of 2020? Those will all come near the end, because those are the big ones. Those are like Best Actor and Best Actress and Best Motion Picture. We asked them who the Catholic media organization of the year is. We love to ask people who have gone out of their way to get on our mailing list, hey, who's the Catholic media organization of the year?
I love it.
Guess who they picked?
Word on Fire.
They did not. They did not. They were kind enough to pick us. But man, do people love EWTN too, though. There are lots of EWTN.
God bless EWTN, the legacy of Mother Angelica.
Right. And also, I think a lot of people think we are EWTN. They think we're the same thing.
We are not. We have a close friendship with them.
We did Catholic Word or Phrase of the year, most inspiring news story, most depressing news story. Basically, those two came out to be the same thing, actually. Negative trend and positive trend of the year. And then we asked some questions that were specific to this year about specifically about the COVID, actually. So we're going to get into all
of
that.
What's that?
Hopefully a distant memory soon. I hope that in the coming months it will be a distant memory. So let me ask you this, if I may, because we did all these crisis shows throughout the year. So as we prepare to go through the poll, and as we reflect on the year 2020, does it feel like as much of a does it feel like the crisis has peaked at some point, or do you feel like we've come through the main crises of the year? Either one of you or both of you.
Well, you're nodding, Chris, like you got something lined up.
Oh, I do have an answer to this question. For me, it's well behind me, but this is my own life. when the matter came to a head in the spring, Catholic Answers reacted beautifully to it. We, with the exception of this program, largely closed down the office. Everyone was working from home. Our productivity remained quite high. In fact, I think there was a lot of adrenaline. And other people have told a similar story about their organizations. And so I couldn't have been more pleased with how the apostolate operated. But within a month or two at the most, I sent word to the staff that we needed to be in one another's company and that we were reopening the building, taking what measures we could not to infect one another. And I've been living my life as president of Catholic Answers in the main, insofar as possible, as in as ordinary a way as I can. And thanks be to God, we have a chapel and a chaplain here, so our sacramental life proceeds. So for me, it's behind me, and also it's behind me in large part, Cy, because I've shut off the news.
That's funny. I've done the same thing since the election. I wasn't able to do it before the election. So your reputation for ordinariness then is intact.
Amen.
Is that?
Yeah.
I'm sorry,
Yes.
Chris.
Well, I follow the rules.
Yeah.
That's what ordinary means, right?
Yes. Well, it also means the bishop of a local place.
Right.
But, what do you think about the crises of this year, Todd?
Well, if I recall, when we discussed the crises, we didn't focus exclusively on the COVID. It sounds like I'm a grandfather already. We're talking about the COVID, but rather kind of the long, slow, simmering crises of our culture, right? So
yeah, that's right.
I don't know that we've resolved any of those, and perhaps because we're dealing with so many others, you get a kind of crisis fatigue, and you either kind of check out, which is nice, or you kind of bunker down a little bit, and you feel like, well, everything's just kind of gripping us from all sides. Let's return to kind of fundamentals. The family, prayer, and the things that we can take as bedrocks during them.
I think this will be a theme for me through the next 2 hours here, Cy, and that is turning our attention to the things that we can, in fact, manage.
Yeah.
And that has been actually one of the great gifts of this crisis, if that's the word. There's so much of it that is outside of our control, certainly outside of mine. Within the church and without.
Yeah,
but there are many things that are within our control, and those are the things that I choose to concentrate on.
It's interesting your use of the word and pointing to there is a lack of resolution. It doesn't feel to me, as 2020 comes to an end, that these things like the Black Lives Matter and on all the stuff that followed on the death of George Floyd has had any kind of resolution. It doesn't feel like the various crises in the church. It doesn't feel like this was a year of resolving things. And even the election, though it settled some basic things like how many Democrats and Republicans will be in the Congress, it doesn't feel like anything was resolved. It feels like we survived the year rather than resolve. But however, with the COVID thing, it does seem possible that we are now. I know that there are many, many different opinions on this, but it does seem possible we are coming near to a resolution with vaccines that will possibly, make it not the pressing issue that it was. What will become of it, I don't know. So I don't know. What do you? It doesn't feel like I don't feel like much resolution to anything.
Not even the election was that, and we were all hoping it would be a kind of catharsis. But
it wasn't.
Control of Senate still isn't. The control of Congress and the Senate still isn't decided yet.
Right.
We've got a couple more weeks to bite our nails over that one.
Yeah.
And then even when that's over, it's almost like there's a new set of waves that's about to start crashing down on the shore.
Right.
So, Cy, it's not intended by the people who create revolution for there to be resolution.
Oh, that's a very good point.
They don't want that. So all the George Floyd and the Black Lives Matter, et cetera, these are the tearing down of the statues of Columbus or Junipero Serra or the Blessed Virgin Mary. These things are just it's the ongoing revolution. It's the ongoing iconoclasm, however you want to describe it. And yeah, it's not meant to be resolved.
They may promise resolution,
of course,
and they promise that this one more thing,
defund the police, and crime will go away.
Yeah, right. That's true. That is. We live with these kind of promises of just do this one next thing. You know, if you just don't have I can't remember even years ago what that pipeline was between Canada, but there was this idea. It was almost pushed like global warming. It would just no pipeline, and then we've settled. There's always like some, but even conservatives. I mean, I don't want to just put it on the liberal side. I mean, there's also that attitude about a wall between Mexico and the U.S. If you just get the wall and it'll be done. There's both.
They take on a totemic quality.
Yeah, that's a good word.
It's more of an optics thing than a real matter of policy. It's about generating support, and money drives a lot of it too, I would imagine, not to be too cynical.
I was at an event many years ago. I've never forgotten this example. It was some kind of a banquet or something. It was before I worked for Catholic Answers, and when I was at the Rockford Institute, and I was sitting next to a fellow who, I kid you not, said, if we could just get everybody to fly an American flag, we would solve the drug problem. That was it. But I mean,
it would be great if everyone would fly American flag.
Yeah, I guess.
That's just not true.
No, right. Not at all. But he was quite serious. I mean, he was writing checks to make this happen. But this rhetoric is very much in force right now. I'm getting Christmas cards from people saying, goodbye 2020. It's all, as if on the first, as if on tomorrow, these things, which are still going to be very much with us, are not going to be.
Well, let's not deprive people of that comforting illusion that we indulge in every single December.
I deprive you right now, listeners.
I officially deprive you. Oh, and he's the president, too. He's got the power to deprive you.
There's something human and charming about the idea that we start fresh in January.
Well, I'll tell you, if it means making resolutions and understanding what you can and can't manage, then, I think there's a lot of good to be gained from this. But if you are under we're going to have a reset, I know that word means a lot of things now.
I know.
But please. Come on, folks.
Well, let's talk when we come back. Then let's talk about that, because part of what happened in 2020, one would hope, is the shattering of an illusion of modern invulnerability to nature and reality. But I don't think it did. Once again, I just don't think that you would think that the illusion would be punctured, but it just seems resilient and unpunctured. We'll start with that when we come back.
Catholic Answers Live.
Hi, this is Cy Kellett. Don't forget to check out the latest episode of our podcast, Catholic Answers Focus. You can listen each week to the world's premier podcast on Catholic apologetics at CatholicAnswersFocus.com, or subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Catholic Answers Focus, now available at CatholicAnswersFocus.com.
Underwriting for Catholic Answers Live is provided by Real Estate for Life. Real Estate for Life connects homebuyers and sellers to real estate agents while supporting pro-life organizations. On the web at realestateforlife.org.
EWTN, helping people grow in their love and understanding of God.
I just want to share that 5 years ago, my lovely warrior princess and saint of a wife and I decided to adopt a little girl through foster care. She is the perfect roundout of our family of 3 boys and her. Yes, there are challenges. Very grateful today for all the blessings that he has shown our family.
EWTN. Live truth. Live Catholic.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. We're reviewing the year 2020 with President of Catholic Answers, Chris Check, and with the Director of Publishing here at Catholic Answers, Todd Agliolaro, and myself, Cy Kellett, the host of this program. And part of how we will review the year is we're going to reveal the results of our poll on who the Catholic person of the year is, what the Catholic story of the year is. We should have done one of our poll questions should have been how reliable are polls, because I think the polls took a hit this year as well. But kind of what I was getting at in our illusions not being punctured is that there is a kind of I don't know any other way to say it, arrogance of the modern mind that says we can control everything. And even down to, and I'm going to borrow this from you, a comment you made at the break, Todd. Controlling our gender, that we're in charge of this. And then nature comes along and gives you, well, possibly. There's some people say, well, nature didn't come along. It was the Chinese military. I don't know. I'm not a virus expert, but it would appear that nature flings this virus up, and we lost a lot as a consequence of this virus. We did not show great a great ability to control even ourselves or our ability to treat one another with respect. I mean, but I don't see any humility coming from this. I think we're just continuing on the arrogant path of the modern mind.
These things at bottom, Cy, are denials of original sin and its effects. And the way we can control that, insofar as we can, is with God's grace. And that is not at all part of the conversation.
That's a very good point. Well,
I wonder if it's encouraging, maybe in a small way, to reflect on how this is a cyclical thing, at least in modern times. The scientism of the early 20th century. I mean, our belief in sciences and mankind's learning's ability to fix everything and create a utopia probably pales in comparison to what it was before the First World War.
Yeah,
or
right.
even between the wars, and we've been humbled by war. We've been humbled by other pandemics that were just as deadly, and as a percentage of total population, deadlier than the one we're dealing with now. We've been humbled by political scandal and all kinds of things, environmental degradation. So, have we come out the other side, completely chastened? No, of course not. But it may be comforting in some small way to recognize that this is not a novel thing.
Yeah, right. It does seem, as you were speaking, I was thinking about on 9/11/2001, there was something humbling in that something that looked so permanent just disappeared from the map, and that the war in Iraq was, I think, humbling for our sense of invulnerability. And now this, and there are other, in 2008, the collapse of the collapse of the economy, basically. But it seems like we're getting a lot of humbling things happening. I don't know, when are we going to be humble?
I think Todd's observation is important if people know something of history. But the difficulty is that we live in the moment and not in a good way. And so the pandemics to which he refers, or the scientist, the enthusiasm for science in the early part of the 20th century, or even more recent things that you refer to, Cy, economic collapse or downturn in the 08 and 09. These things are distant memories to so many people. In fact, I don't even think they think about them at all. Because in large part because of the way technological communication runs, and the way it's constantly presenting novelty. We're not likely to be humbled or take the lessons of collective wisdom.
I think an example of that too. I think you're absolutely right, and I think it's important. And many have made this distinction, and I won't take it too far, but a distinction between the effects of the pandemic, properly speaking, those who are made ill and killed by this virus, and the effects of our attempts to mitigate the effects of the pandemic. And how much more economic damage have we done? And economic is more than just Scrooge McDuck with his bags of money. Economic means people's lives. It means their
right.
jobs. It means their health
and their mental health, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah.
So how much harm have we done in a hubristic belief that technocratically we can organize our response to this natural phenomenon in such a way that we skip right past it, or we minimize its damage, and in fact we may have done more in China.
There is no question that we have done more. The answer is a ton of damage, a big ton.
Explain that a little bit more for me. So that we've done damage.
The reaction to the reaction to the virus, the attempt to mitigate. And by the way,
I see. Okay, I'm.
It isn't even that. It's not even that. I would say the general cultural understanding is one of mitigation, because mitigation means, okay, we do what we can, and then
we live.
Yes, yeah. and we live. Like avoiding death is not living. Right, so but it's just like we're trying to eliminate this or live without its effects. That is impossible. And in the offing, in the attempt to do that, as Todd observed, economy is not simply the bottom line or the quarterly report of a multinational publicly traded company. It's the small businesses and the livelihoods that have been destroyed, absolutely destroyed by an overreaction.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I see that. Yeah. In some ways, that just will continue to resonate out and out and out because we're in two camps really as a society. And this, I'm not inventing this. Everybody knows it. We're in these camps in which you have to be in some ways resistant to the critique of your side because you're in a war of a kind of an information war. And so we naturally are very, very defensive about our side in that. So it doesn't seem to me that Twitter is suddenly going to realize, we did a bad job in all that censoring that we did, that we should treat adults like adults, or that Facebook is going to wake up, or NBC News is going to. They're not. They're going to be hardened in their bunkers of their view of the world, their worldview, or
the millions and millions of people who use these platforms. I think your point, Cy, about two sides here is an extremely important one because especially because it affects or infects conversation within the church. And we see this, for example, at Catholic Answers, where people will say, well, you guys are trying to navigate the middle of the road. You'll publish a book by this person, and then you'll publish a book by this person. Which side are you on? Well, both actually have, like the old 60s song there, right? Yeah. Which side? But both people have some valuable things to say. And the church is in this way kind of a fraternity of conversation, and they're valuable ideas to be exchanged. And it's not a question about navigating the middle or anything like that, but rather embracing the fullness of the conversation. Todd runs into this, of course, more directly, and you do on the radio, in the press, and on the radio. But I find it extraordinary. And look, I call myself a trad. I like the old mass, but trads especially, the doubling down on either you're with Vigano or you're not, for example. Or
exactly. It's
so unedifying.
We have our totems within the church as well. Where look, which flag are you flying? Yeah. Well, I don't want to fly a flag. I just want to be a Christian with you.
Oh gosh, exactly. So
go ahead, Todd.
Well, I didn't have much to contribute there. This is a phenomenon we've been observing in politics and in the church and in other venues for a long time, and we can identify some of the contributors to that, social media probably being high up on the list, that allows us to, and really the expansion of media generally, everything from cable TV to Twitter, allowing us the ability to sequester ourselves in ideological bubbles, hearing what we want to hear, associating only with those who are like-minded, and the creation of echo chambers. I'm hardly the first to observe this,
right?
But it's a self-perpetuating thing.
Yeah. But I guess it has something to do with turning off the news entirely since the election. Like every now and then my wife will tell me something and I'll say, I didn't even know that was happening, because I've really, since the election, zoned out. But part of it is everybody, I mean, this siloing kind of has the effect of, well, who am I? I mean, whose triumphalism do I want to listen to today? I mean, I would like the news, but
that's a good word, and it takes on the character of religious fervor, of course, in Catholic conversations, but also in political ones. And I've got friends whom I respect greatly and contributors to Catholic Answers who believe with a great deal of zeal that we're approaching a kind of singularity of a great moment of you're with us or you're against us, and everything is kind of clarifying into that. And if you don't see it, then you're against us. And there's a kind of purity test now that we're facing more and more.
Well, the tests are a terrible idea. Although, I mean, I am a person who in print has advocated for purification by clarity. That I think that bishops need to teach clearly. But that's a different thing.
Have you suggested this to them, Cy? Have you proposed that?
I did.
Write him a letter.
Okay. Yeah. Good.
Yeah, I'll write a strongly worded letter.
This is a great idea.
Yeah, just teach the faith, and that will purify the church because people will choose, do I want to be part of that or not? Amen. But I don't want to present it as a test to anybody. Like, you can't come or you're not part of this if you – no, that's terrible. That's a horrible idea. But I do think clarity is a cleanser of its own, in that eventually people say, well, is that if that's really what you're about in regard to abortion, I'm not part of that. Or if that's really what you're about in regard to marriage, I'm not part of that. And then the other person who goes, hey, I think I am part of that. And so then things get straight. All right, we'll take a quick break, and I'll become more articulate right after that.
Si, you want to roll?
Hello, this is Archbishop Alexander Sample of the Archdiocese of Portland in Oregon. Keep that dial right here on Catholic Answers Live.
Aren't faith and reason two separate and distinct kinds of truth? Why do Christians believe in the biblical creation story when science has disproved it? How can the modern world take religion seriously when they oppose scientific advancements like birth control and stem cell research? In 20 Answers, Faith and Science, you'll find smart, solid answers to these questions and many more, clearing away misconceptions and helping you to understand and explain to your friends and family the complex but ultimately harmonious relationship between religious and scientific truth. 20 Answers, Faith and Science is part of the 20 Answers series from Catholic Answers, offering hard facts, powerful arguments, and clear explanations of the most important topics facing the Church and the world, all in a compact, easy-to-read package. Visit shop.catholic.com and take a look at this exciting new series from Catholic Answers Press.
If you spend any time on Twitter, Facebook, or mainstream media, you're probably familiar with the litany of slogans that skeptics employ to rescue you from the foolish belief that God exists. The constant onslaught seems to leave people with the idea that they have no alternative but to embrace atheism. How can a Christian respond? In One Less God Than You, John DeRosa breaks down 20 of the most common atheist challenges and shows you how to craft effective answers. Atheism is more aggressive and widespread than ever. Read One Less God Than You and prepare yourself to respond with the joyful truth that God is real. To get your copy of One Less God Than You, visit shop.catholic.com today or ask for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you. All right, it's about time to get into some poll questions as we review the year 2020. The members of the Catholic Answers Radio Club, of which I was told yesterday there are 14,000. I'm very proud of that, 14,000. You can be a member of Radio Club. You just go to CatholicAnswersLive.com, scroll down to the part where you put your email address in, and we will send black helicopters to your house. No, that's not true, but we'll send all kinds of good stuff.
I was just thinking, for their 14,000 members, if each one would send in a check.
Oh my goodness! So he's going to do fundraising right up to the end of the year.
We could do that studio redesign that you want to do, Si. Put that wet bar in.
Right.
We could get a helicopter maybe if it's successful.
Oh, Catholic Answers helicopter. That would be. We could speed to the scene of the crime whenever something happened. There's been a liturgical abuse. Get in the helicopter.
Right.
Eye in the sky.
Yeah.
Sign in the sky. Oh my gosh.
This is getting good. All right, so do you guys happen to remember last year, among the things that we'll get to later, is the Catholic Story of the Year and the Catholic Person of the Year?
I forget both of them.
Do you have any recollection of what they were last year?
Yes, I remember. I remember the Catholic Story of the Year. This is what people voted was the Catholic Story of the Year.
Right. For
it was not actually the Catholic Story of the Year.
No, this is what the people voted for. Yeah,
it was the fertility statue.
It was Pachamama.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, the timing of when the poll went out and when the Pachamama happened meant that virtually every category last year was overwhelmed with Pachamama.
Right.
So,
but we do know that whole thing was orchestrated.
What was orchestrated?
The whole
you have to tell me about
flinging of the thing into the Tiber River and going to get it. It was all funded and orchestrated. Right.
I didn't know that. I don't know the behind the scenes stuff. By who? By the Pope or by
No,
the Jesuits?
not by the Pope.
Oh,
No.
oh, okay. I did. Well, are you going to tell me, or do we have to wait till after
Well,
the air?
it was a Catholic personality
Who
set
paid
up
for and set up the stunt.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. I'm so out of the loop. I think I had heard a rumor to that regard, but I didn't follow.
He's
up
talking
on it.
about the river thing. You're talking about the Vatican Gardens thing. I think
The guy.
Yeah,
well,
substance of
wait
it.
a minute. Well, the guy
It's
who was
frightening.
Catholic Person of the Year was the kid who threw it in, right?
Yeah, I was going to tell you, Alexander Schugel.
Yeah, right.
Alexander Schugel.
How's his
Austrian.
speaking career going right now? Is he on the circuit? Or is he,
No one's on the circuit. Everyone's speaking career went in the trash this
is
year.
he doing webinars? Is he?
No one,
Yeah.
you can't make a living doing webinars.
We haven't
Casey.
heard.
Yeah.
We've not heard from him lately.
Well, that was last year. So let me get this from you before I start going through the poll, and then we'll work up to the grand finale moment when we reveal this year's Catholic Person of the Year. And it was actually very close this year, unlike last year where where people didn't even know his name. Many people just wrote in. The guy who threw the Pachamama, the guy who drowned Pachamama, all that.
The guy who was paid to throw the Pachamama.
If paid or not, it's okay to be paid for your work.
That's right.
There's nothing wrong with being paid for.
He turned money into good work, just like we do.
Yeah, what's wrong?
Well, no, I mean, but Antifa brings in paid agitators too.
There's a certain way of conceiving of the world in which we are paid agitators. That's what we do here on the radio.
We're
paid-
evangelizers.
It's a fine line. The fine line.
Oh my
One
goodness.
man's agitator. All right, so let me get this from you. I don't know if I prepared you for this, so maybe this is completely going to shock you, but I would kind of like to know what your thoughts are on Person of the Year and Catholic Story of the Year. But the thing is, you can either guess at what the crowd picked, or you can tell me this is who I would have picked if I was.
I've got two.
Oh, you do? Okay, good.
So-
what are we doing? Person of the Year or Story of the Year?
Person first, right?
Person of the Year. Go ahead. Yeah.
So for person, I think there's two. So there's the easy pick, and then there's kind of the dark side pick. So easy pick, I think, is Amy Comey Barrett, who has given us a witness to authentic Catholic womanhood, faithful, joyful. Here's a woman who did not eschew motherhood and childbearing and being a faithful wife, and also became a legal scholar of the First Order.
Yeah.
And has taken her convictions now to the highest court.
Yeah.
The less obvious pick, and maybe it's not less obvious because Hitler was Man of the Year once for Time magazine, but the less obvious pick has to be Joe Biden.
As Catholic Person
of the Year.
I see what you're saying. Yeah,
and I'm not saying that he's comparable to Hitler.
No, but it doesn't.
Only to say it doesn't have to be our hero of the year.
Oh, there you go.
And
Well said.
and this is really momentous. For the first time since the council, for the first time in how long was it now? Almost 60 years. We have a Catholic president that the bishops have to deal with. That the Church in America has to bounce off of and manage, and a Catholic president in particular who is a dissenter on many important social issues. We know the big ones with regard to human life and marriage, certainly, but even now as he chooses his cabinet, it seems that he is returning to militant interventionist ideologues after a period of 4 years of relative peace and and separatism from foreign wars. So the church now and not just the leadership, but all of us have to reckon with that.
Yeah, I appreciate your mentioning Joe Biden because as you said, he's the second identified Catholic president of the United States. He's going to be among the most important people in the world for the next however long. I mean, he's 78 years old. I want to say 4 years, but I don't want to tempt fate either. But for however long we have him, and he is a Catholic.
He's not just a Catholic, and he professes, and that's the way Archbishop Gomez put it, which is very tactful.
I thought so too.
But he says if you He said, if you doubt my Catholic bona fides, I'll shove my rosary beads down your throat. He said once.
Which is that's
an
in a long
image
line
on
of the saints who said the same thing.
It's
I
classic.
believe Saint Dominic started the trend.
By the way, I could see I'll strangle you with my rosary beads,
No,
but shove
it's-
them down your throat.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not an effective weapon in that way.
Yeah, no.
But I think partly Joe Biden would be a good choice for Catholic Person of the Year too, because he embodies this. How are we to be Catholic in the world dispute that we have been having since the Second Vatican Council? But he also embodies all the internal disputes in the Catholic Church about what is a Catholic in good standing and
Yeah, you said that so well, and that is a better elucidation of what I meant by having to reckon with that. He's kind of a
we're going to have to
symbol
reckon
of
with
all that,
right? Yeah, and on abortion, he's wrong. He's wrong and unchristian, and that we have to deal with that. That whatever else he's right on, the most important civil rights issue of our time, he is contrary to Christ,
and his wrongness translates into real world effects. Funding for abortion, it translates into stoking the bureaucracy with like-minded people, and their actions in the bureaucracy will reverberate.
Yeah. And I hope that he is right on many other things. And I hope that he becomes right on this. I'm not at all attacking the man, but we have to speak clearly. He's involved in the greatest and has involved himself in promoting the greatest moral injustice of our era.
So exactly to your point, Cy, I would say, to follow Todd, that the Catholic news story of the year is Archbishop Chaput calling out Archbishop Wilton Gregory on the question of whether he would give or not communion to Joe Biden. And Archbishop Gregory said that he said soon to be cardinal, right? Said that he would. And Archbishop Chaput in First Things said this was wrong. That his colleague in the episcopacy was wrong. And he said it explicitly. Now, how many people know this? But I think that this reveals or makes clear, brings into relief division within the episcopacy in America and within the church more broadly. And that is a significant news story.
And but this just does follow a sort of trend among the bishops of a greater willingness to speak again to one another as adults and not in this diplomatic speak that we've all become so tired of. But fair enough. So that would be story of the year for you.
Yes. I wouldn't. I don't know about the justice. She seems like a lovely person. I don't know her. I've not met her. I'm not enthusiastic about originalism the way some people are. There could be mistakes in the Constitution that we ought not repeat. So I think we should talk about the common good when we talk about what the job of a judge or an elected official is. And I never hear that even from Catholic justices, even though that is the principle that should inform their thought.
We have yet to see her write an opinion or weigh in on something important like that. But as a symbol for and what she represents as a Catholic thinker and now as a Catholic influencer or leader, it's
one thing that was remarkable to me is media, frankly, all around the world, not American media, got it who she was, and that this is the juxtaposition of her with Justice Ginsburg, and the debate about what is a proper feminism. This was engaged all around the world because of Amy Coney Barrett. Mm-hmm. So, but you're right. We still have we barely met her. We got a long way to go to find out what kind of justice she'll be.
But for Catholic Person of the Year, Cy, I am unwilling to name someone I don't know, because how do I know? So I'm going to name someone I do know and someone that I have had the great grace to get to know better this year, and that's Cardinal Burke. And through the work that my brother is doing now as the director of the shrine in La Crosse of Our Lady of Guadalupe. But I've come to know this man well over the past year, and even to call him a friend. And he is a true lion. He loves Jesus Christ very, very much. And I believe great things are coming for America from that shrine in La Crosse that he built when he was bishop there. So he is I'll tell you what, folks, go to the Shrine's website and watch his sermon, filmed by the video crew here at Catholic Answers, Zach and Brandon, his sermon from the Feast of Our Lady of Guadalupe, and see the depth of this man's insight for our time.
Thanks, and I hope everybody will visit the shrine. But whether you can visit virtually now, but in time, get there. I think too, it's going to be a great gift to the Church in the United States when people discover the shrine of Our Lady of Guadalupe.
I'm so happy Catholic Answers has this friendship with this very, very important place for America.
All right, we got to take a break. We'll get into the poll when we come back. We will get into hard, cold numbers from scores of Catholic Answers listeners right after this.
Hello, this is Archbishop Salvatore Cordileone of San Francisco. Keep your dial tuned to Catholic Answers Live.
Do you want to end abortion, halt the attack on traditional marriage, and ensure religious freedom for ourselves and for our grandchildren? To do this, we must convert the culture. St. Paul Street Evangelization is a grassroots initiative that recognizes this need and takes it to the streets. If you're interested in peacefully sharing the gospel in your area, visit streetevangelization.com to learn more.
EWTN, communicating the faith.
And all of you people who are working so hard to get us on radio, that's wonderful. And even if you reach 100 miles or 50 miles, you help spread the word. And we do all the programming for you. Programming is the expensive stuff, so you don't have to worry about programming. And so we want to thank you for everything you've done to make this radio possible.
EWTN. Live truth. Live Catholic.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. Happy New Year to you. I say it early. In some places, it is actually already the New Year. Some of our listeners in Australia will be listening in the year 2021. I hope it's going well.
Good day.
Good day. Good year to you as well.
Our friends at Perusia.
Our friends at Perusia and Evangelization Australia. Also, now that we're talking Australia, I want to say I hope this is the year of Monica Dumit in the Archdiocese of Sydney. If you don't know, we should get her to write a book for us, Todd. She's a superstar. She's a pro-life superstar in Sydney, Australia. We were so amazed with her when we met her. Maybe we should have her on the show sometimes, Nick. We should make a note of that.
Haven't we? I thought we did once.
Yeah, we did an interview with her, but we haven't done a live show with her. We haven't done a live show. All right, we've talked about COVID a little bit, but I want to share two. We did do two special questions on COVID in the poll. The two questions were: did COVID hurt or help your personal relationship with God? Was one of them. About 60% it helped, and some said it hurt, some said no effect. I don't know what to make of that. I have to say, from me personally, I would have chosen hurt my relationship with God, because I consider going to my parish every Sunday to be the foundational thing of my spiritual life, and I haven't been able to do it on most of the Sundays of this year, and I think that's hurt. I mean, God is good and brings good out of evil, but I don't think that, and so the good that He'll bring out is greater, I'm sure. But I miss being in my parish.
I think it's a multifaceted question, and this actually hooks into with what I had teed up as my Catholic story there, which was the closing of the churches. So on the sacramental level, it's inescapable that we've been deprived of that food that sustains us spiritually, and we've all felt. I know I felt a diminishment of charity, a diminishment of the desire to pray, or at least early on did when we were well and truly shut down.
Yeah.
But I think And then along with that, there's been, at least speaking personally, there's been a little bit of disappointment in the way that some Catholic leaders have kind of blithely gone along with the government shutdowns of our churches. One hears on the news every other day this or that evangelical church stepping up and taking legal action, defying the orders in a responsible way, not packing the churches shoulder to shoulder and singing at the top of their lungs, but taking prudent and reasonable precautions to protect people's health, which is important, while also balancing that appropriately with the need and the right to worship. And it seems like in too many places, Archbishop Chaput being an exception to this, as he's spoken forcefully about the need to have the churches open. So if there's been a little bit of disappointment in our leaders for not underscoring sufficiently how much we need the Eucharist, how much we need communal prayer, how much we need all of that, that's been a harm to us. But I think there's a kind of hardening that's taking place in a good way. And I think about experiences I've had 25 years ago when I got to visit countries that had just come out of the Iron Curtain, and they didn't have churches, and they were worshiping outside, and there was still a little bit of subversiveness to living as a Catholic, and it was a catalyst of devotion, and of vocations. And as I go to Mass now in the stone piazza of my parish, and we're kneeling on the stone, and the cars are honking, and the wind is blowing past, there is a little bit of that energizing that comes from kind of being up against it. Yeah. And I think we've come through the worst of it, and we're almost a kind of martyrdom, a white one anyway. But I think it's going to have good effects going forward. I'm optimistic about that.
Okay. All right. Chris, do you want to answer that one? Or
initially, for sure, it hurt. But it wasn't the virus that hurt it. It was, as Todd observes, the reaction to it and the closing of the churches, which, as you may recall, in my brief moment of conversing with the president, I told him this was his most important thing he needed to do, which was to reopen the church.
By the president, you mean President Donald Trump,
right?
President of the United States,
which was to reopen the churches, and then lo and behold, a couple of weeks later. But nonetheless, I depend very much in my own spiritual life in participating in common prayer with others, whether it is at my parish or here at Catholic Answers. So I think that one of the great things that we do here, for example, is Lauds and Vespers, or the Divine Mercy, the various prayers that we say as a corporate body. And I depend on that very much, and not having it or thinking that it could be replaced by watching it on a screen. And I know we even tried to provide these services. For me, the screens almost exacerbated it for me. It just made me even angrier. So I would say it took a downturn. But I'm a grown up, and Catholicism is for grown-ups, and so I was able to get control of that eventually. And I like the way that Todd has described it. I am sick of outdoor masses. I want to go back inside, and not because we have bad weather here or anything like that, but we should be inside of a building, and it can be done safely.
The other question we asked about COVID was, we asked our listeners what they thought mass attendance would be once the COVID is over. And I have to say, we messed up on this question. We blew it. And we didn't give a choice that we should have given, which was that mass attendance would go up. We didn't ask them whether they thought mass attendance would go up, and some complained to us. So I apologize for that. But what we ended up asking was, is it going to go back to 100%, 75%, 50%, or 25% of pre-COVID mass attendance when all this is over, whenever that is? Only 14% of respondents thought 100%. About 40% thought 75% of previous attendance. 50% attendance was the choice of about 33%. So about a third of people thought we'd lose half of our members. And then a small group, again, 14%, thought we'll be at a quarter. We'll be 25% or below.
It's going to be less. It is. I don't think you even needed to ask that question the way you said. Could it possibly increase? Todd's point to the disappointing response from church leadership with respect to the dispensing of the sacraments and the reopening of the churches is indicative of a concern that I have about just how much of the leadership holds in their hearts the reality of the efficacy of these sacraments. And absent that from the leadership, how these numbers could possibly increase, the very best work of organizations like Catholic Answers notwithstanding. I mean, we're in the breach. But nonetheless, I think there's a crisis of unbelief among some church leaders, and getting that corrected is going to be necessary to getting those numbers back.
I read a news article not long ago, and this was with regard to one of those, it was a lawsuit or some kind of legal action that some evangelical churches had taken to either get back into church or to defend what they were doing. And so they were making their case, and the journalist went and picked some Catholic woman off the street to get her opinion. And she says, well, I'm a Catholic, so I know that God is everywhere, so it really doesn't matter whether we get back into the churches or not. Now, look, it's one person. We all know that there's been an epidemic of bad catechesis for X number of years, but it's also a signal of the lack of urgency expressed. And so if there's a decline, if there's a real measurable and serious decline, and there's a lot of reasons I think there will be, as Chris says, one area we can place the blame for that is not signaling to the faithful just how critical it is to get back. Mm-hmm. Not making that job one of every moment, and too easily knuckling under to, in some cases, quite whimsical and extra legal directives from state or county officials.
And when one thinks that we are within a century of bishops in Mexico or in Spain, bishops in Mexico who took the field. Now, sure, we can debate the merits of bishops, taking the field with soldiers, but bishops who took the field with the Cristeros in the war in Mexico were less than a century away from that to what Todd describes as a real complacence. I think we have a crisis of unbelief here. And this goes, by the way, and I know this is on your list, to the McCarrick Report.
I will tell you this, because we're probably not going to get to every single item on our poll, but within the part where we asked what was a positive trend of 2020, a remarkable number of people said the behavior of their own priest or of priests in ministering to people during so as much as I'm not trying to contradict what you're saying about the bishop's level, the on-ground experience of people with their priests is that their priests did take care of them. And did everything they could to take care of them during the pandemic.
We talked about it here. Father Soroki up the road at Our Lady of Mount Carmel, I think. My own priest, Father Peter McGuine, doing everything he could, getting the outdoor masses underway, really kind of setting a standard for that. Here in East County, increasing numbers of confessions. Certainly there are priests who've done very, very heroic work.
And this gets somewhat to the note of optimism that I sounded a few minutes ago. And that's part of, I think, one of the silver linings here, the heroism, the signal that our clergy are showing to us about the importance of these sacraments. My own pastor,
your guy Scott Herrera, Father Scott Herrera, with the Eucharistic processions and the trucks and the helicopter.
He rented a helicopter. He's an old friend of mine. He's the pastor at my local parish, and for weeks and months throughout the summer, he was processing the Blessed Sacrament around the perimeter of our town of Escondido, California, first in a truck and then in a helicopter to bless it.
I didn't know that story.
And of course, we have our good friend Bishop Strickland, who in the middle of it was standing on an intersection in the middle, the busiest intersection in the middle of Tyler, Texas, there,
right,
with the monstrance aloft.
And we've even seen martyrdom there. So my old friend from the Diocese of Peoria, Monsignor Richard Sozman, who was one of the church's great priests, kept administering, and he caught COVID and passed away at the age of 57 just a week ago.
Oh, may the Lord richly reward him for that. But it is such good news to hear people, people who know priests admire priests. It's the people who don't ever have contact. Well, I mean, I guess there's the other side of that too. There's some priests, you know them and you're like, oh, man, you messed up my whole view of priesthood. But there's more to get to. We got the meat of the poll to get to when we come back. Catholic Person of the Year, Pro-Life Person of the Year, Catholic Story of the Year, the positive and negative trends of the year. All of that coming up, plus more conversation with Todd Aguilaro and Chris Check right here on Catholic Answers Live. Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live on this New Year's Eve. Thank you so much for being here with us. And we come to the close of, well, it won't be forgotten. The year 2020 will not be forgotten. And hopefully, wouldn't it be great if 2021 is just the most uneventful year ever? If we get to the end of 2021 and we were like, year in review, and we're like, that was the most boring year. I would love that. I guess I'm the only one. Okay, Chris Check is here with us. He's president of Catholic Answers. Todd Aguilar is here. He's the director of Catholic Answers Press. Thank you both for coming back for another hour. Didn't wear you out the last hour.
What's that old curse? May you live in interesting times.
I like interesting times.
Oh well.
I don't want a
good for you.
I don't want a boring year, Si. But I will say something about to your point. If this is supposed to be the apocalypse, it's really boring. I mean, could we please have some dragons?
I know it's
or
just,
something.
It's like the droning on apocalypse.
Oh,
drones
with a bang,
on
but a
and
whimper.
on and on.
No, exactly. T.S. Eliot, not with a bang but a whimper. Yeah, bring on the dragons and the broadswords, for goodness sake. Right?
All right. Well, with that in mind, why don't we just start here? That because we haven't really talked about this at all, or if we have, we just barely touched on it. When we said, let's do a show on the world in crisis in June. And I have to say, having you two on to talk about the crises that we were facing at the time in June got really tremendous support. Like, we got so much positive mail on that. And then we did it again.
Were there checks?
Here he goes again. Here he goes.
I'm sorry. It's
2020 Gillespie
it's
Way.
a runny,
Just send them to 2020 Gillespie Way, El Cajon, California, 92020.
Yeah. Or give.catholic.com.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Now I'm all flumstered. You flumstered me.
I'm grateful to everyone who supports us, Si.
I know you are. I know you call them up and tell them a lot of the time.
A lot. That is true.
But the thing was, when we were doing those crisis shows in the summer and then at the end of the summer, and then the part of what we were talking about was the tremendous social unrest. And I wanted to just get your kind of reflection on that. Is social unrest over, I suppose, is my thing, because it was this out and out rioting, burning, tearing down. It seemed that the demons had been loosed for a little while. Are we back to civil life, or do you think there's more of that to come?
I heard somebody say on the radio the other day that George Soros is going to have an office in the White House. This is one of these things that, gets shared around. So it'll be up to, what he tells Joe Biden to do, whether they'll be on.
I cannot tell if this is a facetious answer.
Of course it's facetious.
Okay, all right.
No, oh, by the way, the unrest is not over. Once they come up with some kind of a hung jury or something, or an acquittal, or not the conviction they're looking for on the George Floyd cops.
To the extent
there'll be a conflagration.
The Soros gags aside, and who knows what the truth is there, but to the extent that that these things are organized and deployed, as opposed to being.
Hold on, we lost your microphone. I don't know. Somebody hit something there. Okay, sorry. Apparently, we don't want Todd.
That's good. Can I tell?
Oh, yeah, there he is. He's back. Yeah.
Well, to the extent that they're organized and deployed, as opposed to being grassrootsy and spontaneous, and I think there's reason to believe that at least they're partly that.
Oh, for sure they are organized and deployed.
Yeah. Then there's no way we've seen the last of them. They're too useful.
Nope.
Well, the things become kind of cultural habits too. I mean, and if going to the barricades becomes a habit, then it'll just. When the next opportunity comes up, we head back out to the barricade. People will have their go bag ready to go.
Well, habits and they're effective. What they can't achieve by democratic processes or by persuasion of ideas, they achieve through fear. And
with the mob.
This is as old as human history, isn't it?
Yes.
Well, and then strange things happen, because I just saw this news story that. A school in San Francisco, they're going to rename it. It's called the Abraham Lincoln School.
I saw this too. I laughed. I'm sorry.
But the pretext for the renaming of it was he didn't care about.
He wasn't
black people.
sufficiently woke.
And I think, okay, I mean, that's if you want to argue about Abraham Lincoln and all that, fine. But this doesn't seem to be that. This seems to be a completely anti-intellectual or a rejection of reality. We're just going to rename everything. I mean,
this gets to what
it has a year zero quality.
What you were talking about in the first hour about, or what we were discussing about there. Gone out again. No, and there I'm back in. That there's never an end to this constant revolution.
Yeah.
There's no goalposts that aren't.
Oh, I think it's you. I think you're pushing that button with your chair.
I see.
That's Chris Jack has been cutting off your
now
microphone.
I know I pushed the cough button, and with Todd's going on too long, I've got this.
Todd's going to have an accident again.
But I'm so sorry. You're making an important point. But
maybe I was. I don't even know.
But about that it becomes a habit and this revolution becomes
habits are
never-ending.
habits. So habits are habits. They're things we do habitually. But on top of that, when they're proven to be effective at achieving your aims, it's a habit you particularly want to maintain.
But I do think as Christian people, not just as Catholic people, but I think we share this with all Christian people, we have to resist that, in that when they come for the statues of certain characters, we have to say, no, you're not taking that statue down. Now, on public property, we don't have any, but when they, maybe we have say as citizens, but I'm not saying we're in control. But when they say rename that Blessed Kateri Tekakwitha Parish, which we have here in San Diego, Saint Kateri Tekakwitha now Parish, because that's some kind of cultural appropriation, we just have to say no. We're not playing the game because the game is ending.
I think, frankly, when they say they want to rename the Cleveland Indians, the people of Cleveland should say, no, we're not going to play this game. But I understand that is a considerably more trivial matter. But I like your characterization, Si, of this whole it has this whole year zero feel, but it's constantly being reset.
Right.
And it it's funny that the Lincoln thing. There are actually things about Abraham Lincoln I admire, his trade policies and the tariffs being one of them. But eventually the guillotine comes for Robespierre. So we're just going to see there won't be anybody that will be free from the reset.
Well, it seems to me almost like pretty soon Martin Luther King holiday won't be good enough. It's going to have to be Malcolm X holiday, and then it's going to have to be you have to find someone a degree more radical and with a tendency towards more violence or something, because you're inadequately radical. I mean, I don't see how if Lincoln comes down, eventually Martin Luther King comes down, and the whole thing comes down.
Well, Well, as I said, the guillotine claimed Robespierre.
All right, we're going to the poll now, and it's all poll from here on out. We're going to reveal all the big things, and I decided to move this one up because this is so juicy. The pro-life person of the year. Everyone wants to know pro-life person of the year. Do either of you want to take a guess at it or name a pro-life person of the year?
I guess it has to be the Justice,
Amy Coney Barrett.
Right.
Got anything? Did you mute him again? No.
Well, it seems like
I know who it is.
Forever ago that we had the March for Life.
Oh yeah, right. That does seem like that literally seems like forever ago.
And there he was.
And there he was.
Donald Trump.
And that's not
the
nothing.
answer is Donald Trump, right?
Well, I'll tell you what. We'll take a break. We'll be right back with the pro-life person of the year according to the Catholic Answers annual poll.
Yeah.
Catholic Answers Live.
Hi, this is Cy Kellett. Don't forget to check out the latest episode of our podcast, Catholic Answers Focus. You can listen each week to the world's premier podcast on Catholic apologetics at CatholicAnswersFocus.com or subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Catholic Answers Focus now available at CatholicAnswersFocus.com.
The Aquinas Writing Advantage program is part of Homeschool Connections' set of online courses for your Catholic homeschool. Homeschool Connections' website is homeschoolconnections.com.
When I begin my prayer time, I always enter into it with the expectation that God wants to teach me something. And it has to start with my willingness to share my heart with God, not just say words at Him. So whether I'm using more formal prayers or a more conversational style of prayer, I have to bring my heart and my life and my real self to God. And by having that dialogue, we're able to enter into a deeper relationship, and He's able to show me how to use all the events of my life to draw closer to Him.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. The big poll we take each year, each December, we poll the members of the Catholic Answers Radio Club about a whole bunch of things that happened this year so we can talk about the year. Right now we're on Pro-Life Person of the Year. And you were just saying something great at the break, though, that it does feel like we're in a time fog right now.
Yeah, we were.
Well, what happened in 2020?
Yeah, we were talking about some people we thought might be good candidates, but their stories were a year or two old.
Yeah.
And I shared with Cy that I'm so used to metering the change of seasons with the sports seasons.
Right.
And all of those are gone askew.
Yeah.
I mean, we live here in San Diego where the climate gives you very little hint as to what time of year it is.
Right.
And you take the hockey season away and I'm completely adrift.
I have not watched a football game.
Good for you.
I'm not done. I'm done with professional football.
All right. Well, thank you for sharing that.
Well, he brought up.
started on time.
But at least, even football, I have to say, like when
the New Orleans Saints put the name of a man who had a restraining order on their helmet, I said, that's it.
A restraining order for violent
sexual crimes
against
sexual
a woman.
violence against a woman.
I didn't. I see. You know too much news. If you knew less news, you could enjoy NFL football. See, you got to be like me.
Ignorance
Just don't
is key.
It's key. But even the NFL schedule, which has been basically on schedule, or the college football schedule, but then it'll be like Sunday's game is moved to Wednesday. So I don't even know what day of the week it is anymore because we need sports to tell us.
I have so much more time, too, now that I'm not watching football.
I think this might involve a time shift. The number 3 person for Pro-Life Person of the Year is Abby Johnson, and her movie Unplanned came out in 2019. She is a great pro-life person, and they may not, but I feel like there's a little time shift there. But congratulations, Abby Johnson, third in the voting. And does
she get a ham for that, or what are the prizes?
Third place is not a ham. We can't afford a ham for third place.
One of those Chinese hams.
You get an eraser. You get a decorative eraser for your pencil. Yeah.
What's a Chinese ham?
It's just hams grown on Chinese pork farms where they don't observe sanitary conditions and they use growth hormones and that sort of thing.
Okay, yeah.
That does sound good. So congratulations, Abby Johnson. Number 2 Pro-Life Person of the Year. The new Justice, Amy Coney Barrett, one that I think we can all agree with. Many people mentioning that the dogma lives loudly in her. They were very proud of her for that. Number 1, however, I have to say, was an absolute landslide. I do not believe in the history of the poll we have had quite this kind of landslide. President Donald Trump, pro-life person.
Most pro-life president since Roe v. Wade.
This really needs to be spelled out, and not to be all rah-rah about Trump because we can have differing opinions about him.
Yes,
and I have complicated
feel free to
opinions.
Have different opinions about Donald Trump.
But for forever, people on the political right, Catholics and Christians and social conservatives on the political right, have criticized the GOP for not putting its money where its mouth is with regard to
life
to life issues.
Quite rightly, by the way,
and with good reason. Yeah. And the failure of allegedly pro-life Republican presidents to appear in person in their backyard, Washington D.C. at the March for Life, is a huge symbolic expression of that.
The deliberate decision not to.
Yes, and it speaks volumes. And despite Trump's manifest and multitudinous flaws, the courage and the authentic conviction that he showed in putting the weight of the presidency behind the fight to end the massacre and barbarism of abortion cannot be undervalued.
I 100% agree with everything Todd just said there.
I have to say, perfectly said. I don't feel like you can add anything to it, so I'm going to try to add one thing. That this constitutes, in my mind, a miracle. Given that I have been following the career of Donald Trump since he owned the New Jersey Generals and hired Doug Flutie as his quarterback.
Herschel Walker, too. He was on that team, I think. Yeah.
That's of secondary importance to Doug Flutie of Boston College. Okay, let's...
I liked his flakes.
Flutie flakes, right. This is not the man you would have thought would bring us the overturning of Roe versus Wade, and it's seeming more and more likely that in the course of history that is exactly what he is. He's the man that brought us that.
And he could have been what many thought he was going to be, which was a center-left New York City guy who just paid lip service to social conservatism in order to be elected. And there's many things he didn't have to do that he did. And to me, that speaks of authentic conversion, at least on the question of the unborn's right to life. I credit him with that.
Yeah. And he brought his characteristic boldness to it. And among his flaws is his boldness, and among his great qualities is
and pro-lifers feed off that boldness.
Yeah. Right. It's but the fact I do think even had he not been able to nominate Justice Barrett, the fact that he came and spoke to the Walk for Life is, I think, would have won him the poll.
Well, and the number of justices he appointed to lower courts. And there's hundreds.
Oh, I know. Yeah. Right. And the overturning of Roe versus Wade is something that should be done as a matter of justice. It should have been done a long time ago. Roe versus Wade never should have been a decision of a Supreme Court. It was bad law from the beginning. Even those who who favor abortion, I think in their hearts they know Roe versus Wade is bad law.
Or bad jurisprudence, I guess we should say. There is no law.
Yeah, exactly. It's right. That's part of the problem, is creating laws out of nothing, ex nihilo.
Chris's point about lower courts is important. We tend to focus on the Supreme Court, and when we want to criticize politicians for not ending abortion yesterday by a wave of their magic executive wand, we don't realize how much of a turf war. And people who are involved in pro-life activism regularly do know this, but many who aren't don't. And the turf war involves the lower courts. It involves the bureaucracy again. So we're about to see a new appointment or a new nomination to the head of Health and Human Services. Have we forgotten the radical pro-abortionism of Kathleen Sebelius, who I think is a Catholic too, during the last administration?
Right.
And we're going to see the return of the Mexico City policy. And there's a kind of death by 1,000 paper cuts quality to politics in general, and certainly to pro-life political activism. And so there's all kinds of kind of under the surface of the water icebergy type stuff when it comes to fighting for life.
Federal defunding of Planned Parenthood.
The funding of Planned Parenthood, and those things aren't as sexy to us as, well, let's end Roe v. Wade right now. And if you haven't done it, you failed as a pro-life president. Well, it's a long, arduous trench war.
Yeah.
And he did a lot of things that set us up for that war that are now going to be undone in the next administration.
He has the personality of a guy who can fight in a trench. That's partly why.
Yes,
he has that personality. And like I said, sometimes our weaknesses are our strengths, and sometimes he's just not. This is a guy who he just didn't. It's so hard to take the 1980s Donald Trump, and if somebody had said to me in the 1980s, you know what this guy's going to do? I just said, come on, you're kidding me. So it does seem miraculous in many ways. All right, the Catholic word or phrase of the year. Oh, by the way, Donald Trump does get a ham. Yes, we have to send.
He'll like that.
He'll get
an American ham.
Don't. What, are you kidding me?
Hormone free.
Oh my God, American ham. Let's send him some kind of foreign ham. I was supposed to say do Catholic word or phrase of the year. It was a total mess. There really wasn't one in the way that there was last year. Pachamama. I mean, everything. Pachamama was everything. Although there was a kind of a trend where people tried to assemble something around free the mass, or so that, but that never really was much of a phrase. So there wasn't an overwhelming winner in that Catholic word or phrase. I don't know what the Catholic word or phrase of the year was.
Et cum spiritu tuo.
All right.
When was the revision to the Catechism on capital punishment? Was that 2019 or was that this year?
Oh my gosh, when was that? 2019.
Yeah, it was 19.
Yeah.
If it would have been inadmissible, then that would have been a good one. But
right.
Inadmissible.
But don't ask me hard questions in the middle of the show, man. Come on.
There's the time fog again.
I know. But there was one phrase I wanted to bring up that was mentioned, and it didn't win. It wasn't even close to winning. But it's a phrase I loathe. I think it's a cruel and divisive phrase, so I wanted to say it, and because several people mentioned it. Pope-splaining.
Oh.
I loathe the phrase Pope-splaining.
I don't loathe it. It's an apt expression for a certain kind of what do you want to call it? Effort.
It strikes me as a phrase that comes out of
there is a disdain behind it.
It's full of disdain. Yes.
There's disdain behind it. There is. It's not. It's not a word to use professionally. I would say that. Yeah.
Do you want to do most depressing or most inspiring news story of 2020 first? Maybe whatever you want.
Well, I always lean toward the depressing, but don't let me,
I've noticed that about you.
That's melancholy. What can I do?
Can we go back to that for a little bit?
Pope-splaining?
Yeah, it's just for a little bit. Okay, so everybody understands the phenomenon here, and that is the burden of a faithful Catholic who is a public personality, whose opinions are valued by however many followers he or she has, to put the faithful at ease about something unclear that the Holy Father has said.
Okay.
So this is shorthand for that. But even if there is disdain behind the shorthand, and I concede that, there is this thing that didn't exist in the, for example, Benedict papacy.
Oh yeah, you didn't.
Or
have to.
in the John Paul papacy, or frankly, that I know of in any previous ones. So the Holy Father has said some ambiguous things. And a number of people have tried to say, well, I mean, we just had an example of one where he gave an interview several years ago for a movie, and then it was unearthed, and then it had to get explained. And I don't even know that we should be that the matter is completely resolved on the civil unions, or exactly what he meant by that. And so, the fact that it is happening, I think, is actually
happening.
A news story.
Okay.
I think a news story is the wrong word. It's something facing the church right now, and the difficulty for the faithful and for organizations like Catholic Answers is we want people to be at peace. We don't want their peace to be disturbed.
Yeah.
And somebody's peace could be disturbed
by
a lack of clarity from someone in leadership, including the Pope.
Particularly when partisans take the lack of clarity and exploit it. And so the example that you just raised, Chris, is a perfect example because it pertained to homosexuality and same-sex marriage and those questions in civil unions, if you recall. And those who are sympathetic toward or enthusiasts for some of those things read in those statements an approval.
Yeah, Father James Martin ran with this thing. He ran with this thing to move forward his own dishonest.
So when the quote-unquote Pope-splainers who are accused of being anti-Francis, who are accused rather of being reflexively pro-Francis by those who are anti-Francis, take that kind of statement and whitewash it or tell you had nothing to worry about, that's belied by the way that it's used, and not used by some anonymous person on Twitter, but by very influential people in the church who are educated and close to the Holy Father. So that ought to at least put a seed of suspicion in us and have us be shrewd in the way we interpret things that come from Rome.
All right. Okay, fair enough. It goes with a mentality, though, that has that kind of red pill, blue pill. Do you know that whole thing, how that got going in Catholic social media this year?
Well, sure. We talked about this in the first hour. Which side are you on? Or
Yeah, dividing people up. Yeah, that's what. But fair enough. I appreciate your responses. That was very helpful, actually, because I mostly just. It irks me, but I don't need to be so
I guess I'm a little sensitive to it too, because Catholic Answers from time to time, or one of our apologists gets accused of something like this, when in fact what we're saying is, okay, well there are limits to the office. These are the opinions of a man. Catholics in the current age of media can get very much caught up in the latest thing that the Holy Father says on an airplane, or how the National Public Radio or Father James Martin or some, frankly, American bishop is going to run with the thing. And our goal, of course, is to keep people focused on the truth of what the Catholic Church teaches, and for them to be able to find their peace in that. And so we get accused of this. So
yeah,
it's a real thing that's happening, and for the foreseeable future, one that I won't say we have to manage, we have to address.
And you can loathe it still, I think, though.
You think?
Yeah, loathing can continue.
Nothing makes me feel good like a good loathing. All right, we're going to do most depressing story of the year when we come back. I'm going to tell you the top 3 answers. I'll just tell them, and then you figure out which one our listeners thought was actually the most depressing story. Cardinal McCarrick report, COVID-19, 2020 election. Those are the top 3 vote getters. We'll get you. We'll tell you what order they came in right after this on Catholic Answers Live.
Catholic Answers Live.
Bishop Joseph Strickland of Tyler, Texas, is one of the most courageous leaders in the church, known for his outspoken support of unborn life, Orthodox faith and morals, and reforming Catholic institutions. In his groundbreaking new book, Light and Leaven, he offers a forthright perspective on the state of the church today and calls on the lay faithful to meet its challenges boldly. Touching on topics including parish renewal, the centrality of the Eucharist, the need for prayer and silence in a noisy and distracted age, and the battle between good and evil in the church and world, Bishop Strickland's wise insights and evident love for souls will inspire and edify you. To order your copy of Light and Leaven, visit shop.catholic.com today or ask for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
How can a human woman be God's mother? Where in the Bible does it say that Mary was sinless and a perpetual virgin? What can I do to build and deepen my relationship with Mary as my spiritual mother in heaven? In 20 Answers Mary, you'll find biblical evidence for Marian doctrine and devotion, answers to common objections to Catholic teachings about Mary, and guidance on how to imitate Christ as you get to know the Blessed Mother like you've never known her before. 20 Answers Mary is part of the 20 Answers series from Catholic Answers, offering hard facts, powerful arguments, and clear explanations of the most important topics facing the Church and the world, all in a compact, easy-to-read package. Visit shop.catholic.com today and take a look at this exciting new series from Catholic Answers Press.
Did you know you can access Catholic Answers Live right from your phone or other mobile device? Download the Catholic Answers Live app today. The Catholic Answers Live app, available now on iOS and Android.
What are you talking about? It's Thursday, so we get the groovy music. Congratulations, you're both here for groovy music. Groovy Music Thursday continues even on the last day of the year, even when we're doing a special program with the president of Catholic Answers, Chris Check, and with the director of the publishing arm of Catholic Answers, Todd Aguilaro. I'll throw myself in there. I'm Cy Kellett, your host, and we're doing a year in review. And probably the greatest thing of the year is the groovy music. I would say that's the number one thing of the year.
That's Nick Chamberlain on drums.
Yes, that is. And that is quite a few of your progeny.
That's
well.
Nicholas, on the guitar.
But that's Nick Check and the Dead Century, right? Is the name of the...
I think they just call themselves the Dead Century now.
Oh, Nick got demoted. All right, so...
they had trouble dividing up all those, those $6 royalty checks that come in once a quarter from Spotify.
The Catholic Word or Phrase of 2020, I wasn't very clear on this, but there really wasn't one because people it was 150 different answers. But there were a few people, if you had to pick a winner, it would be Free the Mass because there was a few people who said that, but it really wasn't impressive. So the most depressing news story of the year, I gave you 3 choices. These are the 3 top. The McCarrick Report, the COVID-19, or the election. Which did our listeners, what do you guess our listeners picked as the most depressing story of the year?
I don't like that word depressing, but I can tell you what the
I can tell you what fix it now.
I can tell you what the correct answer should be.
What
is the McCarrick Report? But not for the reasons people think.
Well, what is the reason?
Because it really did reveal a crisis of unbelief, I think, in a large part of church leadership. That's the only explanation.
Yeah, and that's horrifying.
That this thing was allowed to happen.
Well, and the report itself landed with a thud. It did not give us the closure or the sense of throwing open the windows and cleansing that we'd hoped it would. And in fact, it sure seems like the number one lingering effect of it has been to see doubt cast upon John Paul II's papacy. He seems to be the one who came out of this the worst.
Yeah,
and not to.
Do you think unfairly so?
Well, no, I think it's fair to criticize the administrative moves of any pope, certainly, and those who know a lot about the papacy that I trust point out that he may have had deficiencies when it came to episcopal appointments and promotions and that sort of thing. So, and there may be reasons for that that are that put that into context. But his sanctity, the whole legacy of his world-changing papacy have come into question now, and we seem to got sidetracked onto that.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
We didn't get the cleansing feeling that we'd hoped for from the report.
No, it's a year of no resolutions. That's the way I'm
for the church in America. This report, I conclude from this report for the church in America that there is a crisis of unbelief in church leadership, in not just in bishops, in men who taught at seminaries, who ran seminaries, rectors, vocations directors, widespread knowledge of this grave evil behavior of a ranking prelate, and little to nothing was done. And there's the example, I think, in the report of Cardinal O'Connor, one man raising some objections. This is not the behavior of men who in their daily life are thinking that one day they're going to stand in front of God and be judged. And that's why I say a serious crisis of unbelief. And that, to me, I think, that is terrifying. That's why I think depressing is the wrong word. The terrifying event of the year.
Yeah. Okay.
Is that this was brought into relief. Probably good that it was.
The one that our listeners picked, the McCarrick report and the COVID-19 were virtually tied. We don't have a big enough sample to be super precise. So let's say they were tied. The election far outstripped everything else, though. People found the election depressing. And it's interesting. There were some people who expressed support for Joe Biden who found the whole thing depressing. Some who obviously they have nothing good to say about Joe Biden who found it depressing. Everybody seems to have to feel that the election was depressing.
Well, you know what else is funny about that? And by the election, I presume you mean the whole campaign season.
Yeah, I think that's probably what.
It was kind of like the phantom campaign. One candidate hardly left his basement. Mm-hmm. And the other found his natural strengths of playing to large crowds and that sort of thing severely hampered. We only had 2 debates.
That's right. Yeah.
There was so much less of the head-to-head conflict of ideas and personalities that we usually get fatigued by.
Right, yeah.
And so the whole thing just kind of came and went.
Felt like it didn't happen.
And yet it still depressed us.
Yeah, that's it, right.
Maybe that's why.
Well, then it had all the controversy at the end too around, because it's a very close election. And in some states, a freakishly close election, then of course there's going to be, especially given the circumstances of the year, all this upset about, well, was it a valid election? Was it a fair election? However you might come down on whichever side you might, you're not going to have an election that close without that controversy. Mm-hmm. And so now we're left with a tremendously unsettled feeling that half the country is kind of happy with their candidate and half the country is like, I'm not even sure that was a legitimate election. That's not a resolution of anything. All right.
Well, and then the thing that's brought most into focus is this thing that we've been talking about in both hours, but just a great and obvious divide. And people's opinion on whether it's okay to kill a baby in the womb is a central question in this, but there are others as well.
All right, well, let's move to the most inspiring most inspiring story of the year, according to our listeners. Number 3, we have already discussed Courageous Priests. They chose Courageous Priests as the most inspiring news story of the year. Number 2, was Cardinal Pell. Was the release of Cardinal Pell. We haven't even talked about that.
Yeah, that was actually one. That was one of my choices for Catholic Story of the Year. Not only his, can we say acquittal? Was it an acquittal? It was some kind of. He was convicted, I know, originally, but
overturning of
the conviction. So, but then the subsequent revelation about Cardinal Becciu and his scandal and the
so it could be
nearly $1 million that he funneled into Australia for reasons that are still unclear. So that of course all stinks and suggests to us what we'd already suspected about the depths of financial corruption in the Vatican. So that can't be separated from Pell's story.
Moral corruption,
certainly. They so often go hand in hand, don't they?
Yes.
The most inspiring news story, and I have to say again, this was quite scattered. This was a quite scattered category, but this was a clear winner. Was the appointment of Amy Coney Barrett? People found that to be the most inspiring news story of the year. I think pro-life for any of us who have been in the pro-life movement for a long time, there's just something about her getting on that court that makes it feel hopeful in a way we have not felt hopeful in a long time.
I hate to throw cold water on this
Oh,
side.
stop throwing cold water.
No, listen, by the way, wonderful appointment, and please God, may she deliver. But the fact that abortion was not the issue in this election, and especially among Catholics, that it should have been, to me, indicates that this sense of victory is overstated.
I'm gonna turn a flamethrower on Chris's cold water real quick, if I may, nice. Just to heat up.
Boil that cold water.
No, it's actually not in direct response to his point, because I agree with his dismay over our inability to frame this preeminent issue of abortion properly. But it's not merely that she's now on the court and she's a vote and she's a voice for things that we support, and she's a laudable woman, but it's also the exercise of political will that it took to get her there. And this speaks once again to something I raised earlier about our just displeasure with our political leaders who have not had the courage to carry water for pro-lifers and social conservatives. And you had this nomination come up at the very end of a term, and in a very divided Senate and a divided country. And it would have been the easiest thing in the world to have gone and picked another milk toasty kind of candidate. Who is that? A Souter type of candidate, right?
Roberts.
Roberts, the kind of candidates that Republican presidents have been giving us forever, and
Sandra Day O'Connor.
Yes, the farther
Roger
you go,
Taney.
The farther you go back, I think the more we can give a pass, because the culture war hadn't well and truly heated up yet. But it is hot now, and we all know what the stakes are and what the context is. And they picked just an absolute controversial candidate, one who would be a sort of division, and they had the courage not only to make the nomination, but for the political machine to keep everybody in line and see her through to confirmation. Would have been very, very easy to display.
Do you know why a political machine does that? It's because they know there's a movement behind them to back them up, and it's the millions of people who built that movement who get the credit for this.
I don't know if that's true, Cy. I think this is the strength of will of a particular individual, and if what you're saying is so, then that there was the strength of the movement behind the decision, then why was it not more, I hate this word, impactful in the outcome of the election? Because if
how do you know it wasn't? I mean, it's you need a
well, then if that's the case, more than a majority of our country is at peace with killing a baby in the womb.
Have you not been watching the news?
Well, that's
the case. That's a horrible truth, but they're at peace with it.
Well, then we're dead.
No,
we're
not
dead.
necessarily.
I mean, you see these
because strong-willed minorities can forge the future and build a coalition that will eventually get even the lukewarm on board. So I don't think so. I mean, most people are lukewarm. That's the story of human history.
I say at peace with killing a baby in the womb. Most.
This is the inspiring story we're doing right now, right?
Well, he's the cold water guy. It's not me. We have to do. Now you seem genuinely offended.
No, I'm not.
Sorry.
Nothing you could say would offend me, Si.
Really?
I just think
I
think her appointment was in large part due to the strength of will of Donald Trump, and I'm going to repeat what I said. It had there been this sort of political will behind it, then the fact of it would have inspired people's votes. Because we want another appointment like this.
It was the whole confirmation process, and that wasn't
which
Trump.
she handled.
Those senators did not vote yes, thinking I'm going to give up my seat for this. They voted yes because they know there's millions of people that'll back them up.
That's always on their mind. Their next election, their next check.
Yeah.
And I would take the results of this election with a grain of salt because of the irregularities.
It was a weird year.
Not just. I'm not talking about the Dominion machines and that sort of thing, but just the mail-in voting. Created an election dynamic that we've never seen before. And
the lack of campaigning. I mean, the whole thing from beginning to end, it was a strange year. It's hard to draw conclusions from it. But I have to take a break, and we'll come. When we come back, I got to tease this too before we go to the break. Catholic Person of the Year, Catholic Story of the Year. People wait all year for this. I believe by now it is a bigger story than the Time Magazine Person of the Year. Catholic Answers, Catholic Person of the Year, right after this.
What magazine?
Thank you.
This is Archbishop Paul Coakley, the Archdiocese of Oklahoma City, and you're listening to Catholic Answers Live.
Underwriting for Catholic Answers Live is provided by Real Estate for Life. Real Estate for Life connects home buyers and sellers to real estate agents while supporting pro-life organizations. On the web at realestateforlife.org.
Do you love praying for people? Have you ever wanted to use your gift of prayer to share Jesus with others and build up the body of Christ? Start a public prayer station with St. Paul Street Evangelization. Listen to people's needs, pray with them, or invite them to meet you at church. St. Paul Street Evangelization can help you get started. Find out how at streetevangelization.com. That's streetevangelization.com.
He was a doctor of the church, a Carmelite, and one of the most famous mystics of all time.
Matthew Bunson and the Doctors of the Church.
St. John of the Cross wanted to help all Christians to become saints. One of his most important teachings was to encourage us all to learn how to love. Where there is no love, he said, put love, and you will find love. He died in 1591.
For more about the Doctors of the Church, visit doctorsofthechurch.com.
All right, Catholic, we're in our last segment of a review of the year 2020. Our guests are Todd Aglioloro, the Director of Publishing here at Catholic Answers, and Chris Check, the President of Catholic Answers. I'm Cy Kellett, your host, but we don't decide this. None of us decides this. This is voted on by the members of the Catholic Answers Radio Club, of which there are 14,000 members, all of whom were invited to participate. And if they wanted to, as a matter of fact, they were invited twice. So if they didn't participate, it's because they were busy doing other things. Catholic Answers Story of the Year. I feel terrible. I've misplaced the email that I have the answers in. Do you guys remember? Anybody remember who the Catholic Answers Catholic Story of the Year? Oh, okay. I can do it. I got it on this one. Do you want to go 1, 2, 3? Justice Amy Coney Barrett was number 3. Number 2 was the election of President Joe Biden. And number 1 was, it was expressed in various different ways, including the bishops caving and the church not believing in the sacraments anymore. But the closing of the churches was the number 1 Catholic news story of the year.
Agree with that.
Yeah, I do too.
In that order? You're happy with all of them?
Well, I don't know, but I think the most significant thing that happened in the lives of Catholics in 2020 was being denied the sacraments, and and part of the culpability goes to the leadership of the church.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we spoke about this in the first hour, the relative fecklessness of our leadership in signaling to us how important it is that we're there in church and that we're receiving the sacraments, and that's impactful.
One thing that I wanted to mention the runners-up, and I didn't mention them, and partly because of time. But one thing that I did want to mention was some people did choose. This was not first, second, or third place. This would be a fourth place, a distant fourth place. The Pope's treatment of Chinese Catholics. Does either of you? I have to say, I feel like I should be better versed in that, because I'm surprised when I, like, for example, see a poll, how many people mention the Pope's treatment of Chinese Catholics. It seems to me that these matters of state, really, these are complex, and people don't remember that this is just my take, that over the course of the years, the Holy See has had to come to accommodations with all kinds of different regimes in all kinds of different ways, and it's not necessarily. I'm probably Pope-splaining now, but it's not necessarily an abandonment of the Chinese people to do something on the international stage that's not agreed with within the country of reference. You know, you think about Paul VI and his realpolitik with the Soviet Union. You can criticize him for it, and many people do. Many people say Paul VI got it completely wrong in his treatment of the Iron Curtain countries. But it is part of the job of a pope to exist in the real world and find accommodations with these regimes.
Pope St. Pius V excommunicated Queen Elizabeth. I know. And as a consequence of that, the martyrdoms picked up considerably. I know very good men, good faithful Catholic men, historians, who think this was a mistake for Pope St. Pius V.
Well, Thomas à Becket was martyred in part for his opposition to lay investiture, and that's part of the deal that we have with China now, that the Church has with China. We grant the state their power to. If not explicitly select the bishops, maybe to put up a certain number of candidates. I forget the details of it, but it's a shade on lay investiture. It's a shade of it. So it represents a change in both those historical examples, but it's all in the prudential order. So is the Pope is the Pope, and by extension all those parts of the Curia that deal, I guess the Secretary of State. What's the
called the Secretary of State.
Secretariat of State.
Yeah.
Are they playing a kind of 3D chess? Is there a long game here?
Exactly, but you don't know.
And but that's the assumption that we're required to make in order to support this sort of thing. And of course, we all want to be more gung ho about it and not be so accommodationist. But that's a matter of debate. I don't know what the answer is.
I can say in this case, it's completely out of my competence to say something about it.
All right, it's time. I don't know if we have a drum roll or anything. I didn't prepare you for that, Nick, and I apologize. The most important announcement, basically, in the year 2020, made by any institution on the planet Earth, we're about to make, and I don't even know if we have a drum roll ready for it. But the Catholic person, no, I saw you. I was being subtle. That was.
I thought Carl Keating outlawed sound effects on this show like 20 years ago or something. Yeah, it's like Patrick Coffin with the mouth noises and the sound effects, and then Carl told him to stop, and there have never been sound effects ever since.
Well,
it's the legacy of Carl Keating.
This announcement.
And there's a reason why.
This announcement is so important. I thought that it was, and that a drum roll was necessary. And it's not necessarily a sound effect. It's music. That's music. A drum roll is music. It's not just a sound effect. See what? I pulled that out.
Where is it?
No, we're not ready yet. Okay. So I picked the top three. I want to tell you that 2 and 3 are essentially tied. Again, the sample size is not big enough to be very precise about this. And the number 1 person had a considerable lead. We'll get to what my thoughts about that are as we go. The number 2 and 3 persons of the year, Catholic person of the year. Now I go? Okay. I'm just messing with you, Nick. Okay. Amy Coney Barrett and Archbishop Vigano.
They're 2 and 3.
They're
3 and 2.
2 and 3. They go back. They're
T3.
Yeah. They're
okay.
I mean, we've spoken about it. We have not said we've spoken about Justice Barrett. We have not said anything about Archbishop Vigano. Do you want to say anything about Archbishop Vigano before I tell you the Catholic Person of the Year, according to Catholic Answers listeners?
Well, he's had kind of a prolific year as a letter writer. I think it seemed like once a month there was something new coming over, ranging far and wide. So it's kind of hard to pin down a single area in which he had an impact. Certainly not to the degree that he did last year. Was it last year? Was it 2 years ago?
Yeah, last year. Well, 2018.
It was 2 years ago.
Yeah, right. That's right. But also, there was some implication that he wasn't quite the administrative powerhouse that he had suggested about himself in dealing with McCarrick in the McCarrick report itself.
I felt bad for Archbishop Vigano when, in the wake of the immediate wake of the election, he started saying things that he could not have known, such as more people voted in this state than there were registered voters, or things like that. And how he could possibly have known that. He couldn't possibly have known that, and so I'm fearful. I believe that his intent is a man of good intention, but I just think that it's once you become a public figure, it's important to be very, very careful about what you say.
There was a purity to his original letter that...
His second letter was the best one.
Oh, yes.
I think his second letter was the very, very best one.
All right, it's time for the Person of the Year, Catholic Answers Person of the Year. We've come right down to the very last moments of 2020, and the Catholic Answers Person of the Year, Bishop of Tyler, Texas, Joseph Strickland.
An author...
Bishop Joe.
Wow, that's
author of a new title from Catholic Answers Press.
That's why I was. Part of me is wondering. Well,
did Dominion do the voting for this?
Well, I mean, it's because these are our friends. You know, the Catholic Answers Radio Club, and we published the book with them this year. We did a bunch of interviews with them.
And God willing, he will be our keynote speaker at our conference in September.
But his reach goes far beyond what we do. But I just, he is one of us. So it's like the fact that I compare it just a little bit to the fact that we win Best Catholic Media Outlet every year in this poll because it's our poll. But Bishop Joseph Strickland does have a wonderful book called Light and Leaven from Catholic Answers Press.
Do you know anything about that book, Si?
I do know some things about it. I know that this is Todd Egliolaro is able to bring in world-class authors to do world-class work, and he did it again.
And a world-class interviewer who participated in the writing of that book. And Si is also too modest to mention that he wrote an excellent foreword for Light and Leaven.
Which is, I mean, I'm a little hurt that I wasn't even mentioned for a Catholic Person of the Year. I mean, not even a mention of me.
I think Bishop Strickland's winning this award, and presumably a nice ham, speak to what Chris has been saying a few times, rightly so, during these 2 hours about the deficit of faith.
Yeah, and he doesn't have that deficit.
He has the opposite of it in spades. Right. And his forthrightness, his plain spokenness about it, his zeal for conflict with the world is so cheering and so inspiring to many Catholics, among which we can count many of our listeners.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right.
Totally agree.
I think when he says things like, "Do we believe Catholic doctrine or not?" The Catholic laity are just fired up by that, and I hope that the support for Bishop Strickland will encourage other bishops to get out there and be forceful. I'm sorry I won't get your predictions for next year. Are either of you predicting a deadly virus for next year? Because neither of you predicted it for last year.
COVID-21. Here we come.
Todd Egliolaro is the Director of Publishing here at Catholic Answers. Thank you very much, Todd. Happy New Year.
Happy Solemnity of the Virgin. It's tomorrow, Si.
That's Chris Check, President of Catholic Answers. And thank you, Chris. Thanks for doing this with us. I'm Si Kellett, your host. We better say this to end the year. Jesus Christ is the light of the nations. We'll see you next time right here on Catholic Answers Live.